Hey, this is Graham. It's a beautiful sunny day today, and I am here talking to you about these two cars here. This is a 2013 Mustang V6 and a 2015 Mustang V6. Odds are, if you're looking at a Mustang V6, you're probably going to be looking at this guy right here and also this guy right here. This is a V6 Premium. This is a 2015 base model. When you look at them, they go for about the same price. We're going to be telling you today which one you should buy. Hello everybody, I am currently in the 2013 V6 Premium, and right off the bat, I can tell you, comparing this to the 2015 V6, this car just plainly doesn't feel as refined. That's the word people were playing around with the 2015 V6. It doesn't feel as tied down. Let's get it out of the way completely. The main difference, technically, between the two cars is that the 2013 V6 has a live axle, while the 2015 V6 has the IRS, the independent rear suspension. And that, you know what, that might not sound like the biggest difference, and you know, if you're just driving around town, you're not really gonna notice it, but on a back road, it feels different. It feels very different. And the independent rear suspension, man, it keeps it tied down. That stuff's good. You don't really notice it until you drive them back to back stock. This isn't stock, that's the sad part. That's the sad part of this comparison. This is not a stock car. But otherwise, compare that live rear axle to the independent rear suspension, this thing feels ancient. It just does. That's the main thing. That's the main difference. But if you look at them side to side power, like they have the same engine, it's almost the exact same. You lose about 5 horsepower, give or take, in the 2015 because of drivetrain loss through the independent rear suspension and other changes, but you're not ever going to notice that 5 horsepower. That's 5 horsepower. So if you're buying these cars based solely off of horsepower, then you're going to buy this one. But you should never do that. That's stupid. Don't ever do that. Don't ever buy this car has more horsepower. That is not a reason to buy a car. You buy a car because you like it and because it does what you want it to do. And 5 more horsepower is not going to change that. Once you sit down in the cars though, this does feel a little dated. It still looks good. It's got that retro feel. But the new one, man, the materials are just better. It's those little differences. The seats especially, the seats in the new one are absolutely fantastic. They are the greatest things. These, they're all right. They definitely aren't the best, but they do get the job done. They're not bad by any means. And of course, if you're looking at the V6 Premium of this year, you get leather. That might sway. That might maybe a big difference to you. But in the new ones, the cloth is still good. The cloth. A lot of people are like, I'm never going to buy a car with cloth interior. The cloth interior is perfectly fine. It's actually pretty nice. The seats, man, you got to sit in those seats. They're good for a base model seats. Those are fantastic. Other than that, most of the things you get, most of like the niceties you get, they're all about the same. I'm not sure if there's too much difference. I mean, of course, the center console is different, but that little screen in the 2015, that's not really that much of a factor, you know. This is perfectly fine. It gets the job done. Here's one big difference. If you're buying an automatic, the 2015 models have paddle shifters. This does not. I'm not sure if you're buying an automatic, the paddle shifters will really make the biggest difference ever, but you know, for me, it makes a huge difference. I don't like having to put my hand down here on the shifter and press buttons up and down. That's not fun. Paddles, dude, paddles are fun. Paddles are interesting. And while they're not the highest quality, it's not like something you'll find in an Audi or a BMW, they get the job done. It shifts pretty quick, and that's what you need. They're good. The seating position, it's not something I like. I still feel like I'm sitting higher up than I should in this car. That's a small thing because this is definitely a better seating position than most of the cars I've driven. But for a sporty-ish car, it's not the best. I feel like I should be lower. I always feel like I'm sitting high up in these older model years, even though this isn't old. That's not the right word, but you understand what I'm saying. I feel like I should be lower in the car, and that might just be the hood position. That's what I was told by Graham, is that it might just be the hood. It might not be the seat at all, but I feel like the dashboard is lower than it should be. I feel like I should be hunkered down in my low, like I should be on the curb. I should be on the asphalt. That's what I feel like. And that's a little thing. I bet if you drove this, you probably wouldn't care. It's such a small little thing. I'm nitpicking at this point. Such a small little thing. It probably shouldn't sway your purchase at all. Definitely drive one. Maybe it would. Definitely drive these, of course. Try to find a used one that you can test drive. Here's another small little nitpicky thing. The material on the steering wheel, on the 2013 steering wheel, this leather feels a lot more high quality and better to the touch. It just does. The 2015 V6 steering wheel material, it's not bad, but it doesn't feel as high quality. I'm just trying to find reasons to differentiate them. They're pretty similar, and for the price you pay for this might be the better option, really, because you don't really get that much else. And in here you get leather. You can get it for probably a good bit cheaper. And same price, just about. If you're buying this stock, it feels and kind of looks, the wheel gap is insane, like a monster truck. This thing is so high off the ground for a sporty coupe. Unbelievable. 2015s, when they came around, they fixed that completely. It does not feel like that. But stock, this thing feels high up, feels loosey-goosey. You can definitely feel the chassis swing back and forth when you brake and you accelerate. But, small fix, you can buy some lowering springs, $100, $200 little upgrade. Man, world of difference. Or if you want to go real big, buy some coilovers. Man, that's an upgrade. You can get this thing now. This is sitting on, I'm not sure what springs. He'll put it up on the screen. This is sitting on some fantastic springs. It changes the feel of the car so much. Probably the first thing, if you buy this car stock, I guarantee you that's the first thing that you will do. It makes the car feel completely different. Before the springs, man, this thing just felt like I was gonna fall out of the corners. I used to drive my buddy's car. This is my buddy's car. I used to drive it sometimes before he got the springs, and I did not feel confident in the corners. It did not feel right. It just did not feel right. And this, it feels good. It fixed it. That's one thing about the 2015s that they got perfect, is there is no body roll. And that was my main complaint about this car up until he put the springs on it. With that $200 upgrade, just the springs changes the car. I cannot recommend doing that to your V6 enough. To your 2012 to 15 or 14 V6. Man, that's a good little upgrade. Don't really need to do it in the 15s, but in here, I want to make this thing go around the corners so good, eliminate that wheel gap. And that's what you should do. Speaking of aftermarket, this car, since even though it's only 2 or 3 years older, you get so many more options for aftermarket upgrades. And of course that will change over time. But if you're watching this video and you're going right now, decide you're going out to buy that car, that might be something you're looking at, because everybody customizes their Mustang. Everybody wants to upgrade. Everybody wants to change it. Everybody wants to be unique. That's definitely a pro. This car has so many more options for exhaust, springs, exterior mods, engine mods. Like, seriously. World of difference. And that's something that I'm kind of frustrated with my car right now, because I want to do stuff to it, but there's not too many options to do things to it. You know what I'm saying? But man, if you're just looking for a good engine that isn't the V8 that costs a good bit more, if you're looking for something that's good, this is a great V6. This thing's fantastic. A lot of people are like, oh, V6 is so bad. It's not, man. They have fixed it. The old V6s were awful. Like, you can't say they weren't. But this thing, you can use all the power it gives to you on back roads and like any regular roads. You don't have to go to the track to squeeze out every last horsepower, foot-pound of torque. You can drive this around town, out on the back roads. You can use all of those revs, man. It's a good time. In conclusion, This is a great looking and driving car if you can get past the live rear axle, if that bothers you, if you can get past the not V8, if you can get past that, if you can get past the sort of not the greatest interior, not the greatest seats, if you can get past all that, this is a great buy. Like, there's not very much I can say that's bad about it besides it's a Mustang V6. And that might be enough for you not want to purchase it. And you know, if that's the case, then that's fine. But man, once you get this model, once you get the 2013, you put it on some springs, you put a good exhaust, good axle backs on it, it is a great looking, great sounding, and great driving car. Like, I can't recommend it enough. If you're looking for cheap fun, and you don't care about people saying you own a V6 and not a V8, then man, this is a great car.
Now let's take a look at the 2015 V6. This car is big, it's orange, and it is angry. But aside from the way it looks, really it's fairly similar to the 13. It's got the same engine, it's got an automatic transmission. However, it does have one major difference, and that is the IRS, the independent rear suspension, which completely changes the attitude of the car. Unlike the 13, this car feels much more like a sports car. That car feels much more like a classic muscle car. And you really can tell the difference when you're driving them. This car feels very modern, very refined, while the 13 is much more retro, unrefined, raw. But Ford has really done a good job of just tying everything down and making this car a solid, true sports car. Another major difference with this car is the open differential. On the 2013 V6, you have a LSD, a limited slip differential, which means that both rear tires are putting power to the ground, pushing the car forward. But in this, you have a open diff, which means that all of the power goes to one of the outside tires rather than both of the outside tires. And in a straight line, that means that this car is a little bit slower than the 2013, but when you're throwing this car through a corner, it means that it can transfer the power to the correct wheel and give you optimal grip through a corner. It's amazing how well this car handles straight. Wow, it actually is amazing how well this car handles straight out of the factory. There's just no body roll in this car. It handles so well, and this car has had absolutely nothing done to it. This is bone stock. Everything's exactly the same. Suspension's 100% factory, and it handles. It probably still handles better than my Mustang that I have modified, added springs to, added a strut tower brace to. I could almost guarantee you that this car still goes around a corner better than mine would. And it is extremely impressive. I'm very surprised how planted this thing feels. Every time I get in it, it's like a whole new experience again. It boggles my mind every single time. Always takes me by surprise. Always feels so good too. It's so smooth, so comfortable. It's nice. It is nice. It feels good. While we're on the topic of going around a corner, I'm going to talk about the seats, because these seats are absolutely fantastic. Unlike the 13 seats, they have very nice bolstering. They hug you extremely well. These seats do the job just as well as any sort of racing seat could. There's really no reason to go for the optional Recaro seats. These will do the trick just fine. The problem with this V6 though is that Ford designed it knowing that it was going to be picked up by all of the rental car companies as their sports car. So they didn't put a lot of effort into the base model. The interior is nice, all the materials are extremely, everything feels good in here, but when you start to look at it, it just doesn't look like they spent much time laying everything out. There's too many buttons all over the center console. The info screen is smaller than it should be. And the dashboard is just hard plastic on this one. It's fake carbon fiber. And it bothers me a little bit. It bothers me that Ford didn't put more effort into the interior on the V6, because this car is probably one of their best-selling Mustangs, if not the best-selling Mustang. So because this car is cheaper than, say, the EcoBoost, and especially other than the GT, this is the car that most people look to buy when they're looking to buy a Mustang. And I can't understand why Ford decided that the V6 was going to be their base model. The EcoBoost is less refined than the V6. This V6 has been around for 5 years now, and it is a superb engine. So like Rhett said when he was driving my car, what's great about the V6 is that it's not more power than you can use on the road. You can really open this thing up, use all of the power on the back roads, and not worry about getting yourself into all sorts of trouble. You can have fun with this car. You can really use all of it. It makes the driving experience much more pleasant, more enjoyable, more exciting. It's like the Mazda Miata, this V6. It's not supposed to be a big, powerful, fast car. It's supposed to be used. You're supposed to put your foot down, let it rev all the way through, and really just wring it out, have fun with it. And you can do that with this engine on the roads, on public roads, on the back roads. You can have fun. You don't have to worry about getting yourself into trouble. It makes this car one of the better options to buy when you're looking to buy. I'm not saying that this is a better car than the GT. Of course, the GT is the full-on American experience, and if you have the means to buy the V8, if you can afford that, go for it, because it's going to be the full Mustang experience that you really, really want out of this car. But if you can't do that, the V6 is a perfect option. It's perfectly powerful. 300 horsepower is not something to just brush off. It means that this car is still fun, still powerful, still fast. It will go from 0 to 60 in under 6 seconds, which is not something just to shrug off. It's a fast car, it's a fun car, and now that you've got paddle shifters in this car, it makes it more sporty. You've got the independent rear suspension, so it handles well straight out of the box. You don't have to modify it. You don't have to do springs or strut braces like I did with my car. This thing's ready to go out of the box, and it is so much fun. It is so much bang for your buck. You can't go wrong with this Mustang. So we've established that this car's great, but is it better than the 2013? In many ways, yes. But in some ways, no. If you buy a used 2013, you're going to be spending a little bit less money, and with that money, you can put it into the car. This car does not have the aftermarket scene that the 2013s do. If you buy a 2013 now, there is a wide library of tons of aftermarket parts that you could go ahead and stick on the car and make it better than this car. But if you buy this car now, you don't have that option. There's not that much out there for it yet, but it is a Mustang, and it will come. There will be parts, but you might have to wait a few years before you can get exactly what you want for this thing. I can't honestly compare these two cars because I like both of them so much. They're so different, but they're both great cars. Stock versus stock, these cars are both very different to the touch. And if you're comparing them stock, I would say that the 2015 is better, but to get the 2013 to or on par with the 2015 as far as handling and performance goes, it'll only take about $400 to make it better, which will still be less than you'd pay for this car new. You can buy a 2013 V6, low miles, great shape for probably around $19,000, while this 2015 can be had for around $20,000 to $22,000, depending on the options that you get, and so on and so forth. So the 13, with the 13, you also get premium seats. You can get leather. You'll get upgraded stereo. These are all things that you don't get in this car, but of course this car has things that you don't get in that car, like paddle shifters and backup camera. It just kind of depends on what it is that you're looking for in a car that will really decide which one is the better car for you. There really is no clear winner when you look at these two cars because they're so drastically different. It just comes down to user preference. The people that like the 13s are going to like the 13s better. The people that like the 15s are going to like the 15s better. There's no better car here, they're just different. If you have the option to test drive the cars, test drive them, figure out which one feels better to you, and go with that one. That's all I can really tell you to do.
I'm sorry, but my car is the superior vehicle in every way, shape, or form. Maybe not shape, that's personal preference, but
No,
every other way.
shape definitely not.
No, it
Form maybe, shape no.
It looks.
Mine's prettier.
No,
sorry.
You can't just say it looks prettier.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's an opinion, but
Yeah, it's an opinion. That's subjective. But what's not subjective is my suspension is better. I have better seats.
from the factory, yes, your suspension is better.
Yes, it's better. So if it's better because it comes from the factory better.
Yeah, but it only took $200 to make
It
mine
is
as good as yours.
better. You didn't even say it. You said. Your car is 10 times better since the last time I drove it. I don't feel like I'm gonna fly off into oblivion when I go around a corner anymore.